The topic in this, the fifth of our series, is educational wounding, innate intelligence, and restorative breathwork. Insights from the fifth or pragmatic level of the spiral dynamics model will help us understand the strengths and weaknesses of our educational programming. After reviewing how educational models have evolved and the factors for human change and growth operate, we'll take stock of how we learn best and set educational goals for ourselves. Let's continue using the spiral dynamics model to understand the value systems, perhaps the most prominent on our planet currently. The fifth subsistence level, materialistic existence. How to conquer threat and want, how to control the physical universe through reasoned knowledge is the problem addressed by the individuals at the fifth subsistence level. The mechanistic, measuring, quantitative method is their main approach to these problems. They value gamesmanship, competition, the entrepreneurial attitude, efficiency, work simplification, the calculated risk, scientific scheming, and manipulation. This pragmatic, scientific utilitarianism is the dominant mode of existence in the Western world today, although a major shift to the next, sociocentric level is well underway, as Claire Graves predicted in the 1960s. At this level, establishment of more highly developed perceptual, cognitive, and motor capacities of the neocortex provide for awareness of patterns, giving ideational control to conscious experience and allowing more complex exploratory behavior. There's less direct internal press for immediate primary gratification, and perceptual novelty itself becomes rewarding. Through continuous activation of lower centers, the neocortical system is able to sustain long-term motivation in environments lacking constant reward. Increased neocortical development allows learning to take place in other than immediate reward situations. The variety and availability of environments to exploration at this stage have a bearing on later learning capacity, although the effects of deprivation are much more reversible than at earlier levels. The latent or signal learning which takes place here is again an active learning method, as in the previous odd-level system, but is not as aggressive or demanding of immediate reward as the operant model in level 3. At this level, the patterning of stimulation, changing and challenging ideational content, and the degree to which outcomes meet the person's expectations are major motivating factors. Here, individuals can wait for delayed reward if it's under their own control, not micromanaged by those in positions of authority, and replete with perceptual novelty. This learning does not have to be tied to a specific need state, nor is it dependent on the amount of consumatory activity or immediate reward. The keystones are the opportunity to learn through one's own efforts, the presence of mild risk, the individual's experience, and much variety in learning. Now, therapy here is oriented towards freeing up dysfunctional patterns in living through unblocking the individual's cognitive learning abilities. That is, helping the individual recognize self-defeating patterns and reorganize them in a more functional manner. Rational psychotherapy is an example of an approach that works efficiently with level 5 conflicts. Attempts to correct neurotic misconceptions about life through unmasking the client's illogical thinking of self-defeating verbalizations, or stinking thinking, as they call it, by first bringing them into the client's consciousness, second, showing them how they contribute to their disturbance and unhappiness, 3, demonstrating exactly what the illogical links in their internalized sentences are, and 4, teaching how to rethink and reverbalize these and other similar sentences in a logical, self-helping way. Much counseling with individuals at this level takes the form of quotes, exploration of resources and pointing out of alternatives for clients in such a way that they understand that the responsibility for the actual decision-making lies within them. The non-rational aspects of breathwork does not rule out working with individuals in the level 5 values when its effectiveness in reprogramming can be explained in neurological terms of tripartite brain development or vagal nerve hierarchy, for example. I believe that getting the head on board before taking off on a journey into the unknown, such that the head can support the process rather than resist it, is most useful. And we will employ this strategy in the work we do now with our educational woundings. Educational models of the past, present, and future. By now, you might have suspected that the educational models that a society creates reflect not only the values of its populace, but the consciousness of those individuals of which it is comprised, and the neurology of the individuals that supports the complexity of learning those values reflect. In the level 2 tribal adapt self setting, education utilized classical conditioning, in that the children were assigned roles and would be near and learn from the elders with the skills that promoted the welfare of the tribe. The heroic level 3 express self level employed more operant conditioning and used exploring of individual drive states to get more immediate rewards, and the survival of the fittest, or knowing how to submit to the fittest, prevailed. The two-factor learning of the adapt self, level 4 saintly system, employed the delayed gratification of the submit first, reward later model in its educational methods, which were highly structured ways of teaching, grading, and shaping student comportment as their report cards reflected. The level 5 express self latent or signal learning requires latitude for students' creative exploration under a broader structure with novelty for competitive advancement based on achievement rather than conformity. As has been detailed in our classes thus far, each of these progressions was supported by a corresponding growth in brain development and cognitive complexity. In future classes, we'll see how this growth continues with observational learning, allowing for greater assimilation of information without the necessity for hands-on manipulation. Holistic learning models, which are more experiential and employ more right and left brain integration, and so on. Factors for change. Now, how do we as individuals or as groups grow and change from one level to the next? As we grow, our neurology and environment synchronously grow, and so do the educational and motivational models that will work best for us. The reason so many and diverse forms of education have come forth is that they grew out of the needs of certain people and environments at certain times in their development. No one model serves best for everyone. What you will see in this course is how the more enduring techniques of health and well-being have been adapted to evolving models. In particular, you'll see how the breath and its use has been adapted to each level and can often serve to integrate the levels of development within individuals and among groups of people. The first factor necessary for individual change from one level to the next is a basic organic potential for growth. A severely brain-damaged individual is limited in capacity for conscious growth. Second is a readiness factor. The problem of existence must be adequately solved at our present level before we can maintain our existence at a higher level. For example, at level 2, the challenge for existence is achieving basic safety in a non-comprehended world that seems full of spirits. Here I refer you to Chapter 3, Figure 3 of our class text, Breakthrough with Breathwork, for a chart listing the themes for existence and the defining problem for existence at each level, as well as a more thorough explanation of the complex process of changing consciousness, which we are just briefly summarizing here. Third, there must be the impetus for change towards a more adequate form of existence, which entails the introduction of dissonance in the system at the proper time. This dissonance is different for each system. For example, for a tribal level 2 individual to be exposed to a charismatic leader, not adhering to tribal customs and surviving with greater freedom. Fourth, there must be insight, the acquiring of new ideas for living that precipitates movement towards a new form of life. For example, how could I leave my tribe and form a new allegiance that's fulfilling? Fifth, the environmental impediments or barriers to movement must be overcome. Well, for example, safely leaving the tribe with adequate provisions and join a new band without being killed. The meeting of all these factors produces a direct or vertical change, whereas meeting just some of the problems for existence may produce a partial or oblique change. And if some of the problems are addressed but there is a lack of insight or potential, there can be a shift to a more complex form within one's base level, or a horizontal change. Individuals actually incorporate each level they grow through and have elements of the levels into which they are growing. They tend, however, for a significant time to centralize at one level and interpret their world, embrace the values, and learn with the tools of that particular level. Nor is their growth typically in a straight line progression. Upon completing the challenges of one belief system, and in the process of letting go, there's often a regression or a moral crisis when they can no longer live out the old values, but have not yet embodied the new ones successfully. A period of searching for how they fit into a new world of consciousness until they stabilize and make it their own vehicle for growth. This can seem like chaos and be very scary. Now, in a pluralistic society, there are many individuals and groups operating at different levels, which does at times produce chaos and stir fears in many people. Here's where the education in the universal principles of truth, simplicity, and love, though they are seen and interpreted differently by each level, can still provide a bridge of hope, mutual tolerance, if not respect, and the prospect of shared growth. For example, a fundraiser for those who have undergone a community tragedy may be engaged in from a multiplicity of values and motives. That is, the stronger's duty to the weak, God's commandment, an efficient way to replenish the workforce, brotherly love, ecological balance, healing the one body, etc. All these different motives or values may be involved and still produce a beneficial result for all. A variety of educational models may be serving different populations, again for the benefit of all. Many years ago, some in the administration of the public school system in the city which I live, Milwaukee, saw the merit of offering a variety of school settings to serve those who would benefit from different methods of education. So there were designated Montessori, Waldorf, open classroom, and traditional classroom schools to which residents could apply. The theory being that parents would gravitate towards the models that represented their family's values and from which their children would most benefit. Enlightened plan, no? What was not provided for, however, is how the majority of children whose parents were not informed or concerned would be placed in schools. So an administrative rule was instituted that every school had to admit 40% of its students from the neighborhood in which it was located. Thus, a great percentage of students were put in settings whose model did not fit their needs. Now, real chaos ensued. I personally counseled a number of teachers who had been trained in one model who were dealing with many students who were not ready or able to adapt to the style of education being provided. Consequently, their day was filled with discipline issues rather than meaningful instruction, such that even the students who were suited to the model benefited marginally. The teachers were at their wits' end, as the saying goes. Now, in the end, even educational wounding can provide the opportunity for everyone to learn and grow as long as universal principles prevail and more efficient systems evolve. I've been witness to educational models being shared with Milwaukee from other cities, which address the needs of children with potential, but who come from survival-challenged environments. Some of these models are successfully funded by enlightened citizenry, even when the more traditionally enmeshed institutions take much longer to respond. One of our current classmates and her husband are instrumental in several of these initiatives. Intelligence of the heart will always find a way. Let's bring this home and do another personal inventory and set some goals for our future education individually and as a group. Personal inventory of learning methods and their effectiveness. Take handout 2, section 1A, and complete. In the past, how I learned best is when. Then in section 1B, in the past, how I learned least is when. Next, in section 2A, complete, I motivate myself to learn the most when I. And in section 2B, complete, I motivate myself to learn least when I. Then in section 3A, complete, 3 educational goals I have for myself in this course are. And in section 3B, complete, 3 steps I'm willing to take towards these educational goals in the next month are. Now, here's where it's important not to make any campaign promises you cannot keep. You're not expected to complete every goal by the next month or even by the end of the course. Some goals may be ongoing. It's okay to have some short-term goals like, I'd like to have a great meeting with my partner over the next month, and have more long-term goals like, I'd like to feel myself supported by Source every day, or I'd like to complete a graduate degree and bring holistic education to the schools in my city. The steps that you take in the next month may be very concrete, like setting a date with my partner to meet in person, or more general like write an affirmation about my being supported by Source that I put on my desk, or do a Google search of holistic graduate schools. Whether it's concrete or general, it's the spirit that holds sway regardless of how the form turns out, and regardless if this group is still meeting or you're listening to this video years after it was presented. Our spiritual family is growing and ongoing. So, be loving and honest with yourself and the group as you write your goals. Turn off the video and come back when you've completed handout 2. When you're ready, if you can, share handout 2 with an accepting, compassionate person. It could be a major victory in releasing all past educational wounding and recovering your full capacity to learn and grow eternally. Holding you in my heart as fellow travelers on the road home, I send and receive blessings for our circle and all sentient beings till next class. Blessings in light and love.